So it's Central Jersey, 2010. My buddy Russell Anthony had just set me up with an HVAC sales job, of which I had never done before. And as a part of the training process, I was out with him on some ride alongs. So one night, it was cold. We went to a house. This pretty strange man answered the door, and we go inside. I figure out pretty quickly that there is something off about this guy, or at least I think there is. So we end up going down into the basement. He shows us to the door and we walk downstairs. He stays upstairs and I'm trying to get cues from Russell the whole time. I'm trying to say, "Hey, Russell, there's something wrong with this guy. Something's off about him." And Russell, he'd been doing this for a long time at that point in time, and he was like, "No, no." He's like, "There's nothing wrong with this guy." So I could hear that the what I thought was that the guy locked the basement door, and I turned to Russ. I'm like, "Russ, I think this guy just locked the door." And Russ says, "No, he didn't. He didn't lock it." I'm like, "No, Russ, I think this guy just locked us down here." And so, we finish looking at the equipment. We start walking up the steps, and I guess he heard us coming up the steps and must have unlocked the door. And we go upstairs, uneventful. And I guess all my fears were irrational. We ended up quoting the job and we left alive. So this was, my first entrance into the world of in-home sales and, the in-home service world, which I had never been a part of. And over the course of the next decade, I met thousands of people, stepped into thousands of homes, and heard the most ridiculous, saddest, happiest stories you've ever heard. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a podcast that was geared towards our adventures in the field, that was geared towards the people who spend countless hours in a car driving from call to call. And this could be HVAC, plumbing, electricians, windows, siding, doors, heck, even insurance salespeople who do, sales calls in people's houses. And do a 30 to 45 minutes, tell our stories, tell our adventures, tell our tales. And the intention here is just to, share our experiences. And at the end of it, we're just going to have a good time. What this podcast is not is a way to 10x your business or how to implement AI to, increase your marketing department, whatever the case may be. There are lots of podcasts for that. I have friends who do those podcasts. They're incredible. They're resourceful. They're amazing. This is not that podcast. There are a couple of ground rules. Okay. So for all guests that are coming on, there is, and listeners, rule number one is this is all in good fun. Nothing is off limits. We're going to make fun of each other. We're going to make fun of other people. We're going to have a good time. Everything is fair game. Okay. With that being the case, rule number two is if you're offended, you're the problem. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean, hey, last I checked, this is America. We have freedom of speech. We're going to have a great time and nothing's off limits. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And that leads us to rule number three, though. Don't be a douche. Don't be a douche. No hate speech. That won't be tolerated. We're just going to have a good time. We're going to tell our stories and it's pretty self-explanatory. Don't be a douche, which leads us to rule number four. Your stories must be true. You could tell some third-party stories. We're going to tell some third-party stories, some third-party adventures. But ultimately, I'd like to hear from people that experienced it, on their own. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for people who have adventures to tell. I'm looking for people who have spent time on the road, that have met interesting people. I'd like to know these stories. Now you have two ways to do this. One, you can come on if you've got 30 to 45 minutes to tell the stories. Or two, if you're gun shy, you don't want to get in front of the microphone, you don't want to get in front of the camera, you can go ahead and send me those stories. You can PM me, you can email me. So I was at this house at gmail.com, or you can just PM me and that's fine. And smoke signals, I'll get it somehow. So our first guest is going to be Phil Grego. Phil is a hilarious individual. I know him for like 15 years. He is in the in-home sales business for the last 14 years. We work together. He has more stories than anybody probably ever, of the strangest people you will ever meet. So, so come on board, send me a message. I'm really looking forward to this.